This is the Simply Well Seniors Aging Well Seminar Series. It is May of 2026. This is the third year we've been doing this. And we have a wonderful panel here again with us this year. Very familiar faces, I hope, to some of you, and maybe to some others of you, they're new faces, but they're a wealth of knowledge. So like I said, Kelly, I'm Jeff Turcott, and
Kelly Kurtz.
And our business is Simply Well Seniors. We are realtors, but we're different. We help seniors navigate the journey to the next place they call home. And we have, who didn't silence their phone? Who is it? So our sponsorship series is, our series is actually sponsored by some great folks. Our platinum sponsor this year is Sunrise Senior Living. Let's give Peter a round of applause and ask him to say a word, if you don't mind, Peter.
I am not Green Day.
No, you're not.
No.
I could not be here today because she was moving a family in. We provide assisted living and memory care services under the auspices of the Office of Aging and Independence for the state. That's our regulatory agency. And building's been there since 1996. I've been there since 2006. And happy to announce that again this year, and since its inception in assisted living, we've been recognized as best assisted living and best memory care by U.S. News and World Report. So we're very proud. Blessed to have a great team, and if you have any questions, I'll hang out for a few minutes at the end. But really important subject today. Every time I listen to words on this subject, I learn something. I'm not a lawyer. They don't even play one on TV anymore. But I'm really looking forward to learning some new information.
Thank you, Peter. And this year's gold sponsors, Senior Helpers, Lifecare Centers of America in Heywood, Wakefield Commons, and Christy Livingston is here. If you'd like to say a word. I don't have your walk-up song, but.
Right. Have the crane there next. I'm Christy from Heywood, Wakefield Commons, assisted living community in Gardner. And we have an affordable model to our assisted living program, which makes us pretty unique. I put a couple of event flyers on the back table in June. On June 15th, Aging Services of North Central Mass is going to do a presentation about social isolation and loneliness. Which I think is going to be a really good program. And then we're having our big summer party on June 18th, which is an Oktoberfest in June theme. So information in the back for that, and love to have anybody who would like to join us and enjoy our little community. So thank you.
Thank you. And we'll hear from, yes, worthy of an applause, absolutely. We'll hear from Lifecare Center and Senior Helpers a little bit later as well. Okay, thumbs up. Good, Bill. Get ready for it. And as always, a sponsorship by our videographer, Next Level Studios, and Keith is here again. Keith has never missed a seminar. In the 3 years
running.
going, he has been here every time. He's like clockwork, so we appreciate that.
Yes.
Yay, Keith.
And the nice thing is all these videos from all our seminars for 3 years are on our video library and on our website. So if there's a topic you're interested in and you didn't get to come to the event, you can always watch a recap of the seminar on the website.
Just quickly, a little bit about us. We have a proven process. We help seniors navigate the journey to the next place they call home with downsizing and decluttering, senior move management services, the setup of your new home, apartment, assisted living, wherever, and then the fancy way to say it is the disposition of the asset. Sell the home. and that process, like I said, has been proven, and it works well. We love working with folks that are planners, that plan, this is where they want to move to, this is where the time frame they'd like to do that, and work through the process of them. We can work with folks that are in a little bit more of a hurry because of an event as well. We've done plenty of that too, so we have the resources. And we'll be sticking around if anyone would like to talk about that later. But first, before we get started, we have some wonderful folks from Gaurdianships Ward and from Merrill Lynch as well today, but we're going to jot some things down on the whiteboard. So if anyone has does anybody have anything they're looking to a question they want answered today, specific?
A reason you came here, there's something you're dying to know about that maybe we can work into the questions.
Special needs trusts.
Special needs
Special
trusts.
needs trusts, okay.
And Brianna's like, got that. Yeah, okay. Yes.
Elder trust,
Elder trusts. Okay.
yeah, Medicare, Medicaid, all that kind of
Okay.
stuff.
Yep. Peter.
What's the difference between a power of attorney and a durable power of attorney?
Okay. Yes.
More of the family trust. We have a handful of kids, and how do you do it?
Oh. Family trust. Okay. We can dive into a little bit of that. Brianna's nodding her head. Yes. Anybody concerned about an income stream for your life?
Do you have some?
A recurring income stream?
That's the door prize. We got some.
we're gonna talk a little bit about how best to prepare for that.
All right, so that's a good list. We're going to cover a lot of different things today, but these are some things that hopefully you'll learn more about. And then, of course, our guest speakers are going to be available after the seminar if you want to ask them some specific questions. It's hard to ask like a really, really specific situation that you might have to the whole group. So if it's something like that, you might want to hold off and then hopefully even make an appointment with them to discuss further. But certainly we'll try to get as much information to you today as possible.
Okay. So without further ado, I'd like everybody to give a big round of applause to our good friend and Vice President and Resident Director at Merrill Lynch, Casey Freeman. We'll learn a little bit more about each of you before we get started. So
First part. So
I had the slide set up that way, you know. And then we have our attorney friend Brianna Boudreau-Cecino from Gaurdianships Ward. Brianna, come on up. Woo-hoo.
So maybe to get started, maybe we'll have you each take a couple minutes and just tell a little bit about yourself and your experience, just so the audience knows. Normally we would have a bio we would read, but it's better right from your mouth because you can tell the folks exactly what you want them to hear.
You got to introduce first.
Okay, good morning. My name's Casey Freeman. I'm the current resident director of the Merrill Lynch Westboro office. I've been a financial advisor for 20 years. I currently oversee 12 other financial advisors, but also have my own practice where we do financial planning. We oversee approximately $400 million of assets in our practice. My wife is a certified financial planner. We have another female advisor on our practice. And I've been in a couple of these panels so far, and 20 years of experience in this topic. So I'm going to see how much I can add. She's, of course, the nuts and bolts, but I am also probably the secondary area where people set things up, then they come to me to either make changes, align things, et cetera, with their finances. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Great. All right. Good morning, everybody. Can everyone hear me all right? All right. Excellent. I am Brianna Boudreau-Cecino. I am an estate planning attorney and probate attorney right at Gaurdianships Ward up the street here in Leominster. I have been an attorney for 10 years. I've been specific to estate planning for about 6 years now. Before that, I was doing a bit of family law. So I also bring that to my experience. Day in and day out, all I do is estate planning and probate work and trust administration. So I am meeting with clients to discuss their situation and help them craft the estate plan that's going to work best for their wants and needs. Anything from the basics, wills, powers of attorney, healthcare proxies, to more comprehensive trust planning for concerns like mass health planning and estate tax mitigation. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be back here.
That was a mouthful. That's
That was great. And neither one of them look old enough to have the experience they do, right? So isn't that great?
but they do.
They do.
So Brianna, while you have the microphone,
Oh, yes,
let's
okay.
let's start with you. Let's just start this off. So
All right.
we provided them with a list of questions prior to the seminar, and we're going to really go off script and not ask them any of those. And,
I was really hoping you would, Jeff.
and see how that would work. But no, just kidding. So the first we want to talk a little bit about. So what are some of the most common misconceptions or overlooked aspects of estate planning that a senior should be aware of?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say one of the most common misconceptions that I see when I'm meeting with clients is the difference between a will and having to go through probate and a trust. So I think that there's a lot of misinformation that just having a will helps you to avoid the probate process, which it really doesn't. Not to say that a will is not a very important document, but it does not cut out that probate process. It simply provides instructions for probate. And really, if we're looking to avoid probate, we're looking to more of those trust setups. Another thing that a lot of people overlook when they think estate planning, they're not necessarily thinking about durable powers of attorney and healthcare proxies. But those are two very, very important documents in estate planning. And a lot of times actually are more important than having those pieces in place as to what happens with assets when somebody's passed away.
One other thing that I would add is we have people that ask the question, of course, like, I don't have enough that I would need a plan. I have a will, that's enough. I don't have millions of dollars or something like that. It doesn't really matter what you have. It's if you want to have control, of course, at your death. Just having a will doesn't necessarily create a roadmap for where things are going to go. For instance, like stepchildren, et cetera, if they're blended families, if you have one child that would maybe not be best to inherit money right away, the other one is. So I think no matter what your situation is, a plan is, of course, necessary if you want to have an outcome that is up to you, not someone else. Right.
And let me add or ask. So should people wait until they're in a position where maybe they're going to have an illness coming, or no?
Never. The best time to plan is when you are healthy.
So plan.
Yes.
Sooner the better.
I always say anybody 18 or over should have at least a power of attorney and healthcare document in place.
Okay.
Yeah, good information.
We might not need this.
I know, I am pretty loud.
Yeah. Can everyone hear okay?
It's for the video to pick up. Yeah.
Okay. So, Casey, this one's for you. How about charitable giving, and how can people incorporate that into an estate plan? Maybe leaving money for loved ones or for an organization that they might want. Do you see a lot of that in your financial planning?
So as of late, we've seen a lot more of charitable giving because of where the stock market is. Stock market at highs with many things that people own. So we oversee some church accounts where people are donating stock to the church right now instead of just donating money because they can save the taxes. Not necessarily the taxes of the donation, but if you've had something that went up a lot in value, okay, you don't get taxed on the gain if you donate it to a church. So one of the churches we oversee, people donate shares of Caterpillar, Apple, etc., where they might have a gain of $25,000. If they sold it and gave the money, they'd pay tax. If they just gave the stock, they don't pay tax. So that we've seen a lot more of that lately. And I'd say like it's becoming more and more common. The other piece would be many of you probably are in like RMD mode, right? With your IRAs, you have to take money out every year. You're required to do a certain amount. You can steer that money towards a charity and it's not realized as income for you either. So that's another way to essentially, if you're writing a check to a charity and you still have to take money from your IRA, it's a different way to do it, and you don't actually have to pay tax on that withdrawal. So it's a way to slow down how much. Go ahead.
If you have a thrift savings plan and you make the charitable donation, is that the same?
any retirement account is how it would work. It's called a QCD. So, and that's just a matter of like, we would make the check out to the ASPCA, the church, university, whatever it is. And we send the check directly, and then that comes off your required amount, but it isn't realized as income.
Does it have to be established or, 103? How does that work? Does it have to be any specific one, or can you give it to a charity local?
We're any local charity, really, as long as there's some sort of EIN that they have. Okay.
The other piece to some of this is the accountant and the tax implications of certain moves and that kind of thing. We did invite our accountant this year again. He came a couple years ago, but he was still a little bit jammed up. But that's the other piece of some of this as well. So, okay.
Did you have anything to add on that, Brianna?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there is always within an estate plan, if interested in charitable giving, there's ways to build those provisions into an estate plan as well. Whether that's a certain dollar amount that you want to give to a certain charity or a number of charities, whether that's percentage wise, those are all things that can be built in at the estate plan level too, to happen when somebody's passed away.
Okay, good.
Actually, I'll add to that to a real world example. 2 weeks ago, we had a woman, no children, no beneficiaries. She had trust set up. It's about $3 million, all went to charity. It was all structured with multiple charities, but we essentially did all the work to send it there because she had no one personally to leave it to. So she structured it all at her death. And she ended up with like stage 4 cancer. So it was really rapid. So without that in place, like she probably couldn't have done it like herself, right? It was too quick, hospice, etc. So having that set up through an attorney really helped.
Yeah, we recently worked with a family very similar, no children, wasn't married, left to a charity, and she did the planning early. And what the executor was her nephew. What he was finding was happened over the years, because she did it so early, that she had named people in her will that she was going to leave money to, but then she had a falling out with some of those groups, and she'd take a pencil and cross them out.
And a few of the folks had passed away that she wanted to leave things to. So it's important to get things updated, which we'll talk about as well, not just a one and done and never touch it again until 30 years later. That's really important to keep things current.
So let's talk a little bit about our mature homeowners and what needs to be considered when creating an estate plan to protect property. There seems to be the buzz around nursing home's going to take my house, and how to protect that. What's the truth about that?
That is, I would say that's probably one of the more common things that I hear too from my clients is concerns about what if they need long-term care. And I do hear, what if the nursing home takes my house? So the first thing that I want to say is that there's not going to be a situation in which, a nursing home or Mass Health is going to say, okay, we're going to take your house. They might put a lien on the property that would need to be repaid at some point, but it's not as if you go into nursing care, your house is gone. Now, there are, again, that is a concern. That's a very valid concern for a lot of people. Their house is their legacy. That's where the bulk of their, money is gone. That is where most of their assets are. So it's valid to want to protect that. So when we're looking at trying to put plans in place to protect that very valuable asset, we do have options. So sometimes that looks like a life estate deed where, the client is retaining the right to live in the home for their lifetime. And when they pass away, it passes automatically to their children or whoever it may be. Sometimes that looks like setting up an irrevocable trust where they are actually deeding that property to a trustee that's not themselves. And again, still retaining the right to live in the home, but it's not considered their asset, so a lien couldn't attach. The caveat with any type of long-term care planning is that there's always going to be a give and take. So in exchange for that protection of the asset for long-term care, the client is going to give up some degree of control and access. So for many people, they don't realize that piece when they first come in. And sometimes that means they're not actually taking those steps to protect the asset for long-term care because the flexibility for them and their needs during their lifetime outweigh that what if. You know, there's no guarantee that somebody's ever going to necessarily need long-term care. And this is very, you know, it's protective planning, but it sometimes isn't necessary. And what's more important to the client is that they know that they are in control, that they have access, and that they can do what they need to during their lifetime using the equity in their home if needed. In those cases, again, having that estate plan in place that directs, okay, when I've passed away, this is what I want to happen with my house is very important.
Casey, anything to add to that?
Not on the real estate side.
Okay.
I defer on that one.
All right.
So, Brianna, again for you, how often should folks review and update the estate plan? So we're talking about, you know, doing it early, but then, you know, considering changes in laws and personal circumstances.
So my general advice to my clients is review, take a look, pull out that binder, read through everything at least every 5 to 10 years, or major life events. So if somebody has passed away, if somebody new has been born, if somebody got divorced, if somebody got married, all of those big kind of life events that kind of make you reevaluate everything, that's when you should be looking at your estate plan too.
Okay. All right. So it's not a every quarter kind of thing, but
No. I mean, it all depends on the client. I have people that I have come in every couple of years or so and something's happened within their family and we're changing it and then they get back together and we're changing it back and that's okay. These are built to be flexible. Certainly that's not, we're not building them to have to do that, but we do have the ability to make changes if needed with most of the estate planning tools that we use.
All right. And the example Jeff was saying about the woman we had that was crossing stuff out with a pencil, that doesn't count. If you look at it every couple months and you change it yourself, it needs to go through the attorney and be official, correct? Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And my comment on that would be, in our practice, we do an annual review of things like beneficiaries because you might update it with your attorney, but you also need to do it on your financial accounts because the trust might say one thing, but retirement accounts don't follow the trust. So, and any beneficiaries on our accounts supersede like a will, a trust, etc. So if you had a new grandchild born, so you want to add them to something, you add into the trust, but not onto your accounts. We do a beneficiary audit annually just to make sure that it matches up with what you want. Okay. Or if you have a falling out, for example, right, which happens pretty frequently in my world, where they cut shares out and say, now it's not just my daughter and son 50-50, it's 80-20. We make sure that annually we're asking any of these things need to be updated. Good. Or if someone passed away.
So it's like in the movies, you're out of the will. That's it.
You'd be surprised how much that happens in my world. It's very common.
But those aren't things that are changed willy-nilly today, tomorrow. Mm-hmm. There should be some thought put into it.
Yes.
Okay. Casey, while you have the microphone, what role does life insurance play in this plan?
So when I was looking at these questions, life insurance in my space, one of the common things we see is where people want like my child to get the house, but my son would get this instead. So life insurance is good to be able to split inheritance, mm-hmm. where it's maybe not as simple to split a house, of course. We have some people with rental properties, for instance, but the one child has no interest in any of that. So life insurance can help create that pool mm-hmm. to then be able to give money to one beneficiary because the other one wants real estate. The other piece to it is taxes, right? So life insurance is inherited tax-free. So if these beneficiaries are inheriting things and there's taxes due on the estate, whether it be federal or state estate taxes, the life insurance can create that amount instead of them having to sell something mm-hmm. like a house or like stock or pay taxes on their own to do it. So life insurance can create that pool of assets to pay taxes if need be, to be able to keep the Cape House or keep that car or whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. So
how about to provide survivor income?
So that's one of the trickiest things now with, of course, like spouses. You lose a Social Security. You might lose a pension depending on what options we're kept. So income replacement can be really important at the same time, because you might be getting $2,500 a month of Social Security. Your spouse might be getting $3,500, but one of you passes away, there's only one left, right? There's no combination. So the life insurance piece can make up for some of that. And again, it's tax-free. So you might inherit $100,000 because your spouse passed away, but you're not taxed on it. So it creates kind of an instant pool to draw off if someone passes away early. The challenge is the insurance companies are tough depending on your age, right, to try to get life insurance. So it's not as easy, of course, at like 82 years old to go and say, I want a life insurance policy, right? Depending on your situation, though, it might be relevant, and you could also sometimes couple it with long-term care. So you could check both boxes because there's hybrid policies. I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but that can sometimes offset the need of just one thing. You could be getting another benefit just in case, if that's something you're concerned about.
And is life insurance, is the best way to obtain that is going through an insurance agent, or do you have policies through financial planning or through attorney that you can connect people with?
Our firm, for instance, we don't have our own policies, so we shop. So we can do New York Life, Transamerica, really any of the insurance companies that are reputable. If you go to New York Life to an agent, you're going to get New York Life, right? So no matter what, I would say, like, look at someone that's probably independent so that they can shop the whole list. Like if you go to Ford, you're buying a Ford, right? If you go to CarMax, you get to choose really whatever car you want. What might make the most sense. But really, I'd say make sure you go to an independent person that can look at all different kinds, all different companies, because they're all going to vary greatly. A 75-year-old that's trying to get life insurance, the price at New York Life could be really good versus at 80. New York Life could be really bad. So they all have sweet spots too. So that's why it's important to try to find a place that can do multiple companies, because each company has sweet spots where their pricing is good versus bad.
Okay, that's great. Back to Brianna, I guess, or start with you anyways. Can you give the folks some guidance on selecting the right executor or trustee for their estate? So sometimes we hear, oh, it's going to be my daughter or my niece or nephew, or just what the responsibilities entail for when you do select someone to be your executor or trustee.
Yeah, so this is not the time to not be concerned about hurt feelings. This isn't the time to be concerned about, okay, I named this one for this one, and I need to name this one in a role. When you are looking at somebody as a fiduciary, whether that is a personal representative under a will, a successor trustee under a trust, even an attorney in fact under a power of attorney, or your healthcare agent, it all comes down to trust. So specifically with the financial type pieces, with a will, with a trust, with a power of attorney, we need somebody who's going to be good at actually managing those roles. You need somebody who's going to be able to step into that person's shoes and say, okay, these are the bills that need to be paid. These are the assets that need to be managed. These are the decisions that need to be made. You need somebody that's going to be good with managing people. When somebody's passed away, now you're dealing with beneficiaries who are entitled to this property. You don't want somebody who's going to be too aggressive and now they're making everybody angry, but you don't want somebody that's going to be a pushover either and is just getting everybody in their ear and doing what they say. Your fiduciary's job is to follow your wishes to the benefit of you, if it's a power of attorney or healthcare proxy, or even a successor trustee while you're still alive, or for your beneficiaries after you've passed away. So trust somebody who can actually handle the responsibility. You don't want somebody who's going to crumble under the pressure. It can be a lot. You know, if you think about the situation in which these people are stepping in, there's either been a death or there's been a significant incapacity where this person who has created this plan is no longer able to do the things that they did before. And there's a lot of emotion that comes along with that. So it's somebody who handles the emotion along with the new responsibilities they've just inherited.
Excellent. Just one comment on that before you go, Casey. I know when my dad passed away, he had done his will fairly early, and he made sure that myself and my two siblings had time to really read everything. We reviewed everything. Even the day before he died, he asked me to read it again, at his bedside and make sure I didn't have any questions. So it's important to communicate your wants and needs with the ones you love versus just keeping it in a box in the closet that they discover after you die. And then questions that may come up. It was like this secret. Nobody's going to know till they're reading of the will type of thing. So I think that's, from my perspective, that was very important that we had those conversations in a timely manner. So.
And to comment on that, we've hosted numerous family meetings at our office where it's a safe space. So everybody can come in and the children are there, the parents are there, and it's more of just a professional setting where these things can be talked about instead of doing it at your house, because that can get a little awkward. People behave a little better oftentimes in these family meetings. So think about something like that, like a neutral space when you try to do that sort of thing for the readout. The other comment on like choosing a trustee, choosing executor, some of the common mistakes we see are that people choose someone their age because they trust them. So a sibling, a friend, you have to realize that they're probably going to be going through the same thing as you at the same time years down the road, right? So it's often a bit unfair to say, well, my best friend will do it, but they're going to be 88 years old the same time you're 88. And so there could be an issue. So they might not even end up being the trustee. It's the successor. So age is an important factor in who you choose because you want them to be in a different place than you are when that time comes, whether it be because you had a stroke, doesn't mean it's because you passed away, right? A power of attorney, when you had a stroke, is going to need to step in. You don't necessarily need someone who's in the same kind of situation as you. Okay, so that's one mistake we often see.
Okay. I don't know if we want to dive into any of the questions that people may have had. Power of attorney versus a durable power of attorney. Let's jump into that.
Yeah, let's jump into that. So from an estate planning perspective, we're looking at durable powers of attorney. The big difference is whether the person that you've appointed can still act on your behalf in the event of incapacity. So if it's a durable power of attorney, it survives that incapacity. Those are the ones that are actually going to have somebody who can step in if you have lost capacity. With most powers of attorney, that's only so long as you're able to do the same thing. So with just a regular power of attorney, if you lose capacity, you don't have somebody in place any longer.
I see.
Durable powers of attorney are the really important pieces with estate planning. And there's actually two different types of durable powers of attorney, which a lot of people don't realize. There's a lot of responsibility that you're giving to somebody as your attorney. In fact, there's a lot of things they can do for you. And if they're very important, but a lot of people are very hesitant to give up that authority right now, which is understandable. Mm-hmm. So there's something called a springing power of attorney, which actually allows you to appoint somebody, but it says, okay, yes, you can step in and handle these things for me, but you can't do anything unless I've lost capacity. So that person is in control until they're not anymore, and now we have somebody who's able to step in. Whereas just a general power of attorney, the person you've appointed can be acting for you right away. And there's reasons for those, and there's reasons against them, and it's all very specific to the client, what their concerns are and what they need.
I just learned something.
I'm sorry? Springing. So they're springing, right. Yes. So the person's authority springs from your incapacity.
Okay. That makes sense.
Because how many of us wake up today and say, I'm going to be incapacitated today? We never know. That's a really good thing to have in place way before you need it. Peter?
Can I just ask a follow-up to that question? So if I have a resident moving in to my memory care and their physician has said, you're incapacitated,
and all they have is a power of attorney, that's no longer valid.
So it actually comes down to the language of the document itself. So as long as there's language in that document that says this survives incapacity, you're fine. So
It has to say that.
it does. So it has to have some language to that effect, which if it's an estate planning power of attorney, they most often do. Kind of every estate planning attorney titles things a little bit differently. So the language itself is what matters.
Okay, good point. Excellent. Another question.
Power of attorney and the medical decisions.
Yes.
So that's where we're running into some issues. So, one document is not going to supersede both items, correct?
So any medical decisions are going to fall under a healthcare proxy. That's separate. So I always explain to my clients, durable power of attorney, financial and legal matters. Healthcare proxy is medical decision making. And sometimes those people are the same, and sometimes they're different people.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Let's pick one other one. How about maybe elder trusts and family trusts?
All right.
Dive into that.
Okay. So trusts are a little bit tricky, right? You hear trust, you think of one thing. There is such a broad range of trusts that are out there. There are, most often with estate planning, first we're looking to something called a revocable trust, which sometimes people will refer to these as family trusts. They'll refer to these as living trusts. These are strictly estate planning trusts. So these are trusts where people are setting them up to still be in control of assets, of decisions, of everything for their lifetime, but taking out that probate piece when they've passed away. So a living trust is able to be changed. They can add assets in, they can sell assets, they can really do whatever they want during their lifetime, make any changes to the provisions. Again, if they've had a falling out with a beneficiary and they need to remove them, they want to add somebody new in. Those are all things that we can do with a revocable trust. And those are not going to be some of those long-term care protective trusts, because everything in those trusts is still treated as if it's your own for your lifetime. So they're not going to offer protection if a long-term care need arises. When we're looking at those, I would say that's what people think with elder trusts. So that's going to be an irrevocable trust, where essentially the person is giving away their asset to this new trust that they're not the trustee of, that they don't have access to, that the only thing they can do is live in that property during their lifetime or get any income that's generated. Those trusts can't be changed. Once they're set, they're set. So if there's a falling out with a beneficiary, it is what it is. If, there's a trustee in place, most often they have a provision that allows them to change the trustee, but even that is limited. It's not their property. They can ask their trustee to sell the property, but they're not the one making that decision.
Okay. All right. Let's take a quick break and hear from our other sponsors, just real quick, and we'll allow you to, if you want to refresh your coffee or give a stretch or something. So let's hear from Bill at Lifecare Center. Let's give Bill a round of applause.
By the way, thank you guys. This is very informative. So I am Bill O'Connor. I am the Business Development Director for Lifecare Centers. We have our Lifecare of Leominster on West Street, 126-bed facility, and the Highlands up on Fitchburg by the old Burbank Hospital. Both offer both short-term care, long-term care, memory care. We have a memory care unit at the Highlands, secure memory care unit. And we have a couple of events coming up. We have our spring cookout over at Lifecare of Leominster, and unfortunately, I believe is the same day as Christie's. I might go to both. And we're doing a veterans lunch at the Leominster Veterans Center on May 27th. So that's it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Bill. And let's hear from Senior Helpers. We have one of the co-owners here. He and his wife run this wonderful organization. Here you go, Cal. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Echo. I'm from Senior Helpers. Senior Helpers is a senior care company. So we provide in-home care for seniors that are looking to stay in their homes for as long as they want to. The territory that we cover is on the eastern side, Townsend, Lunenburg, and Shirley, and then we spread out west to Athol, Orange, and Warwick. So all the towns in between, most of north central Massachusetts is what we cover. We try and provide high quality care services. So we make sure that we hire caregivers that we do background checks on. They are employed, they are bonded, and they are insured through us. We give them training in dementia care, Alzheimer's care, stroke recognition, and everything that they need to be successful working in the home environment. We do receive payments as a private pay, long-term care insurance. We are VA providers and mass health providers as well. So if those are things that you qualify for, we're able to service you. And also, there's a Medicare program called the Medicare Guide Program for individuals that have been diagnosed with dementia. So if you happen to know anybody who is on Medicare that has dementia, Medicare pays for about 80 hours of care a year. So that's something we're able to provide as well. So I'll be around if you have any questions in the home care space I can answer. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
So I have another question for Casey, and I guess maybe Brannick will add as well before we tackle a couple more on the list. Just in terms of coordinating the estate plans with the financial plan. I know we touched on that a little bit, but is there any special recommendations or specific things you can share with the audience to ensure that they align with their retirement goals and their lifestyle goals working together?
So typically my team works with the legal team to be on the same page about what's happening. So often it's a joint partnership where you would go to the estate planning attorney, then we would provide a lot of the statements, documentation, et cetera, of what exists so that they can create the roadmap of what needs to be updated, what needs to be changed, audit everything, what could go into a trust, what can't go into a trust, et cetera. And then once the estate plan's built, it's presented back to us with what's called often a funding letter, where we get instructions and those guidelines to say, okay, this joint account is going to become a trust. This IRA now has to have the retirement trust as beneficiary. The children are going to be named transfer on death over here. So we really work hand in hand with the attorney. We don't do the legal part ourselves, so we really work with anyone that's on the legal side to help create that. But you want to make sure that they're working together, because I can't do anything without her and vice versa. Okay. The financial piece of it, I guess it's to often say that what I mentioned before is that your accounts match what you want to have happen, because there's plenty of stories out there where somebody had an old 401k, it had their ex-wife as the beneficiary on it, but they had their trust and all these other things that didn't have any of that. Well, that really doesn't matter that the trust says this or the will says that. So there's still these little slip through the cracks moments that why you need to audit a bunch of random things. That's why often we preach like consolidation at some point, because you can get your arms around everything versus straggler accounts at this bank or that bank where it's just in your name. You had that CD that you did years ago and it just keeps renewing, but it might just be in your name. That's going to go to probate, right? So also simplifying consolidation, et cetera, because you're simplifying your life with an estate plan. So you should also look to simplify your finances to match up with that, just to make it easier on whoever is going to take over as well, right? You don't want your trustee or executor, et cetera, to have to be going around multiple towns, going to this bank, to that bank, having to deal with all these different people, make all these phone calls like that, especially if it's a family member, because they're going to be probably grieving. So it's a lot of work when someone's maybe not in the right space either. So the simpler, the better. So the estate plan helps to carve everything into one area, then make sure your finances do the same thing. So the more consolidation, the better, in our opinion.
Yeah.
So I will say on our end, when we're working with clients who really, really want to avoid probate, having a financial planner and advisor on the other side who's actually going to follow through with retitling is huge. So I can't tell you how many times that I've had the unfortunate situation where I've worked with clients. We've set up trusts to keep them out of probate. We've talked about what needs to be done. We've talked to the financial advisor and said, these are the next steps that needs to be taken. And somebody passes away and they come back to me and they haven't done any of it. And we're right back to probate to move those assets into the trust. So having a team mentality where, yes, we're handling the legal side, we're also looking at what needs to be done on the financial side to truly set up a client for success. It's so important.
Okay, those are good. Those are really good points. That a roadmap and a plan that's set up that is not funded is it's there, but it's not effective.
And that happens a lot, actually, where people have come to me a new meeting and they'll say, "Oh, I have a trust," and they'll bring their statements, but their statements say Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I'm like, you have a trust, but there's nothing in it, right? Because there was never that next step taken. They got the binder, but never changed anything. So you also need to make sure that the registrations are changed. That's where that funding letter is the important part, where there's really an instruction manual of, you need to go to TD Bank, you need to change that account to say Smith Family Trust. You need to go to Merrill Lynch, you need to change that account to say Smith Family Trust. Just having the binder accomplishes nothing. You need to then update everything that was in your name to these different things that were set up, whether irrevocable, especially irrevocable, because you're trying to remove assets from your estate. If you don't remove the assets, then they're still going to be included, right? So,
and the nice thing is these folks are so highly qualified and knowledgeable about this stuff. So if it sounds overwhelming of what you need to do, making appointments with an attorney, with a financial planner, and sitting down, planning ahead and getting those things in place and then executing what needs to happen. As we're saying, planning is so important. Jeff and I just realized when Brianna walked in today, we said, last time you were here, we said we're going to make an appointment to update our wills. And we did it several years ago, but it's due to be updated again. We have new grandkids. We have different things happening. So we're going to call and set up the appointment, because it's always easy to push it off to next week, next month, next year. And next thing you know, it's 5 years later and you haven't done anything. So us included, planning is so important.
It is. Yep. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about, so I've come to Brianna. She gives me this wonderful binder. I've gone to our financial planner with the funding letter. They've renamed and retitled the accounts. And so now what do I do with that? Where do I put all these documents? Do I just put it in my sock drawer and hope somebody finds it, or what happens with that?
Well, I wouldn't recommend that necessarily. Okay. So
take a state plan out of sock drawer.
Let's start with that.
Put in underwear drawer.
Much safer. One of the most important things is knowing where the original documents are. So if we just have a basic estate plan that we're relying on a will, we're going to need that original will for probate. What we do at our office is we actually hold on to originals unless our client asks otherwise. So we have all original documents that our clients have prepared. We have all the updates. They're all in one place. They're filed. We know where they are, so that if those are needed, it's a trip to storage to pull them out. For our clients, we put together a nice binder, and they're not, I'm sure some of you have seen them. They're these super huge binders. Ours aren't that big. They're not that intense. They have what you need in there, nothing more. But we give those to our clients. So that is going to have copies of all the documents they executed. What we recommend is put those in a safe place, but that's a place that's going to be accessible. And let the people that you've nominated as the people who need to step in, where those documents are. Kind of to go back to a point that Kelly made earlier, I have a conversation with my clients about how much they should tell people, and it varies based on the client. At the bare minimum, if you're setting up an estate plan, you should be letting the people know that you've nominated in a fiduciary role that, hey, I've nominated you. Maybe even go a step further. Are you willing to do this? That's a good piece of it too. But they should know that the plan exists. They should know where your copies are, and they should know where the originals are. the originals are important. The copies are important too. We keep electronic copies of everything too. So if we need to email somebody, we can do that. So it's more the originals, I would say, are the most important pieces. But still, having the documents accessible when somebody needs to step in is important as well.
Okay.
And for us, we recommend paper and digital. Her and I worked on a trust recently where she was able to send me all the PDFs as well. So we know that those exist in cyberspace. And with our firm on our website, we have a digital vault where people can upload documents, whether it be passports, wills, trust, etc. So there's essentially a cloud-based on Merrill's website for your account. So other financial institutions might have something similar. But for example, with our firm, people can upload all those documents to a safe, secure location that's always saved digitally. And of course, like having the originals kept somewhere else so that you don't lose them is good, right? Or in your safe box, which again, someone might not know where that is at the right time. So having the two different pairs, but then to her point, sharing that information with whoever's going to need it to some degree.
Good. Kelly and I actually came across a system. It's actually named the Next of Kin box, which organizes these documents and others in a one centralized location. It's very very well thought out, and places where we can put what your wishes are beyond what other things are. Things like the keys to the car, what other assets there are in the house, that kind of thing. We've been working with one client in particular to help put that whole thing together and to have everything all in one place. So if something were to happen where someone is now incapacitated and someone has to figure out, well, where is everything? Well, it's right here. It's all
and even in that box has things like a place for your passwords. So, I mean, on any given day, I don't remember them. Use Face ID, which is, I told Jeff, if I die first, open my eye and get into whatever you need to, because I don't remember half of them. But writing them down is so
half of them on a good day.
so important. So there's even a sheet that has like your Google password or your Apple ID or your bank account password, something that we recommend doing it in pencil, because those things change over time when your password changes. So just even having that kind of stuff that your kids would be able to access something like that to get into. So the system that we have is really good. We can share more information about that if anyone's interested, but it's a good kit.
Yeah, and I would say to that end, this goes back to consolidation and organizing where the assets really are. The hardest trouble that people have when somebody has passed away and they need to step in to administer things sometimes is finding where they are. So if we do have, accounts scattered everywhere, we have paperwork about a life insurance policy that was taken out back in 1988, and we don't know if that's still in place. The more information you are able to provide people with, and again, it doesn't have to be right away. It could be in a centralized location, the easier time they're going to have.
Excellent. Great. Okay. Let's see if we've answered all these questions. We talked a little bit about trusts. How about special needs trusts?
All right. So if somebody is receiving something called means tested benefits, where they have to report to the government what income they have, what assets they have, and somebody wants them to be a beneficiary under their estate plan, a special needs trust or a supplemental needs trust is another word we would use. It can be a very important tool. So these are trusts that are set up to provide the beneficiary with another pool of money that can provide for their needs that their benefits are not covering, but it's not going to disqualify them for benefits. So there are certain parameters that need to be in place with them. We need a trustee who's going to make sure that they're not making distributions that are going to disqualify them for benefits. They can't distribute cash or things like that. But it's a way to provide another pool of money. If we have a child who has special needs that's going to need additional care, and maybe they are receiving benefits, we'll often look to these types of tools to make sure the child has what they need.
Okay. Excellent.
I had one more. We talked about this a little bit about being a homeowner and your estate in terms of creating an estate plan to protect the property or for your future generations. I know I've seen some commercials even lately about don't leave the house to your kids because it's going to cost them so much more money. So is there anything you can add to that in terms of taxes, and maybe Casey as well? I don't know if that is a very clear question, but
No, I think
you get what I'm saying?
understand. Yeah. So right now, anything that somebody were to inherit when you pass away gets what's called a stepped up basis. So they get that property at whatever the date of death value is. So if they were to sell that property, they're likely not going to be paying capital gains taxes on it because the value is and the basis are the same. If you were to gift the property, the person that gets the property gets what's called a carryover basis. They get that property at whatever you purchased it for. So oftentimes I will have clients that come in and say, well, I just want to give the house to my children. And then we have this conversation that if they do that, okay, you purchased the property back in, I don't know when, for $50,000, and your property is now worth $450,000. So if you're going to give that property to your children, their basis is $50,000. So when they sell that, they're going to get hit with capital gains. So that's something that we do address when we're talking about estate planning, because yes, that will move the asset out of their name, but is it beneficial to their children? That's kind of the next step there. Does it make sense in the grand scheme of things? And often it doesn't. So we may look to something like a life estate deed where they are retaining that life estate, and when they pass away, it passes automatically. We might talk about a revocable trust. So they're still in control. It's out of probate, and then the property goes to the children. So there are different ways. It's all very specific. I know it's very confusing. It's very specific to the client, and it's something we go over in detail when we're able to meet and talk to people one-on-one.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of what you're hearing today is the reason why we exist, right? So everything is this is our day to day with everything we do. So one thing before we came up, we were talking about when we talk about taxes was a few years ago, Massachusetts changed the estate tax rules where out of state properties didn't count anymore for your estate. So if you had a house in Florida or somewhere like that, it doesn't count anymore with your estate in Massachusetts for calculations. Cape House will count, but that condo in Florida, and I was saying to her, I'm like, is this correct? Because how would Massachusetts leave that on the table, right? And she's like, well, because of the way values went and how they moved the estate tax from 1 million to 2 million, et cetera. But that's something also to think about, though. If you do have property outside the state, doesn't actually factor in to the overall estate tax for Massachusetts calculation.
Okay. I've got one more question, and then we'll open it up for questions in the audience. But, we keep talking about probate, and everybody wants to avoid probate. So give me an example of someone that didn't plan, had some assets, and they passed and they had no children and no spouse. What happens then?
All right. Well, hopefully we have an easily accessible next of kin.
Okay.
So
I'm
all,
third cousin, twice removed.
Yep. Whoever is next in line.
Okay, here
Hopefully
I am.
we have them. We can find them easily. So I just want to say that probate is not this big, scary animal that a lot of people make it to seem. It's a process. It is handled through the court, but quite honestly, it's a lot of paperwork. Nobody's going before a judge. I don't have to present a case and argue my way to get them to let this happen. But there is a process, and it can introduce some delays. So there are reasons to avoid it in some situations, maybe not all. So if we have a situation in which somebody doesn't even have a will, we're still going to deal with that probate process. So what we have to do is we have to identify who's entitled to this property, and that's going to be legal next of kin. So we need to get somebody appointed as personal representative to step in and manage that process, and we need to know who's ultimately going to get that property when the probate process is done.
So it's a legal process.
It is a legal process.
Okay. All right. And it's paperwork. And
Lots of paperwork. And most often an attorney is doing all that paperwork. So it's not as if, somebody's going to the court and having to do all of this on their own. That's why we exist.
And I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask anyway. Typically, what's the length of time before somebody does get assigned as a personal representative?
So typically we see, a month to 2 months before somebody's appointed as personal representative. And then once they're appointed, they can step in and do what needs to be done. They can pay the bills. If they need to sell real estate, they can do that. If they need to liquidate other assets, they can do that. The entire probate process takes at least a year. And this is where I think a lot of people get confused, is that they hear that probate takes a year and they think that things are just stuck until that 1 year. That year means that's the first point at which the people who are entitled to the assets can have the assets. So in the meantime, the personal representative is doing what they need to do. They're paying bills, they're liquidating, they're finding out where everything is.
Mm-hmm.
And then when that year comes, we can look and say, okay, everything's all set. These are the people entitled, and now go ahead and give that property to those people.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. That makes sense.
From my own personal life, my father passed away last year, and despite my advice, he still had some accounts that were just in his name. So I became the probate person. He was in Rhode Island in a small town. So the challenge was I had to go to the town clerk. They only did court once a month as well. So if I didn't get the forms in the right day, so it wasn't a complicated process, but it was just slow. It was something I could navigate despite, regardless of my background, I was able to navigate it just by talking with the clerk. So there's also going to be people that'll help, but I still had to pay bills, etc., all that along the way. It wasn't this big elaborate thing where I had to hire an attorney and we went and stood in front of the judge or anything like that. So it's I think a lot of people think it's this intimidating process, but really there's often going to be probate no matter what, right? Because you have to close the estate too. So there's going to be some sort of filing. This was small because at least we had beneficiaries, but we still had to go through the process.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, let's take the microphone and see if anyone has any questions. I'm gonna play Donahue here for a minute. Okay. Oh, just to capture on the video.
I'm sure you can all hear me without it, but okay. My question is, if you have legal documents that are drawn up while you're living in Massachusetts and you move to another state, are your documents still valid?
Good question.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
So legal documents are entitled to what's called full faith and credit. So this just means that if it's valid where you signed it, it's valid where you go. Now, with that said, what I do recommend when people move to another state is that they at least meet with an attorney in the new state to review and make sure that they're as advantageous in the new state as possible. So there are things that differ from state to state. The estate tax threshold, certain planning provisions. So it's a good idea to review, but most often it's just a review and a confirmation that you're good to go.
All right. Great question. Anyone else? Yes.
How long do you have to keep the person that passed away's paperwork after they pass?
So I feel like you might actually be in a better position to answer.
I guess the question would be what kind of paperwork?
All of her personal.
Like bank statements, things like that, or wills.
It was on a bank account, so I didn't have that problem.
Mhm.
I just got a whole check for bills paid,
It's probably about a year because if you're gonna have to pay taxes, file taxes, etc., probably about a year would be good to retain them. A lot of it's all available digitally anyway after the fact, but I think the rule of thumb would be at least a year because if they pass away in January of this year, you're gonna be filing taxes next year, right? So retaining them for a decent period of time would probably be a good choice. That way, if anything got called into question, you could look back and still have the documents.
She didn't file taxes because she didn't earn enough.
So it shouldn't have the income. So still probably a year because if there was bills or refunds or things where there was a claim to something like medical premiums, my dad was getting checks afterwards. I was getting refunds after he passed away, for instance. So I also was then still getting bills on the other side. The settlement that we have is still sitting there, and he passed away in June of last year. I just left it alone because I'd rather just leave it alone and deal with it later. Once the mail slowed down, essentially, but I'd say a minimum year.
Thank you.
Right.
All right, so just starting all of this, because we keep saying we're gonna do it, and we have a handful of children. What we thought the will was the document you needed, but the more we've been meeting and hearing, so you basically need a will, an estate plan, the trust. It's a lot bigger than it used to be. So a will is actually not gonna help us, or that power of attorney. We actually have to do a lot more.
Yeah, so it's all very client specific. So I don't want you to feel like having a will is not a good thing. I don't want you to feel like you don't have enough there. It's very specific to the client and to what their goals are and to kind of what process they're looking to set people up for. So again, if we just have a will, that's still good. That's still going to say what your wishes are. That's still going to say who's in charge. We're just going to have to deal with that probate process. So with that probate process, again, we're filing things with the court. Technically, anything filed with the probate court is public record, so anyone could find it. So that's why I say it's very client specific. I have clients that, maybe they have an estranged child or family member that would be entitled to notice if the probate process were required. And we're looking to avoid that from happening. Maybe they're just very private and they just don't like the idea of that having to be filed with the court. Then we might look at avoiding probate. But for some people, just having the basics in place is just fine.
Okay, great.
My comment to that would be also, it depends on what your roadmap says. If your roadmap's more complicated of what you want to have happen, then of course you're going to need more elaborate planning to be done. But if you're more of just, they split it 50-50, you probably can be a lot simpler with it, right? But if she can get 50%, but he's going to get 5% a year, like that's where you need the more elaborate estate plan.
Yeah. Okay, one last question.
Well, I have two daughters, and they know they're going to be 50-50 on everything. But I have a house, and then I have some land. My house and the land is only in my name. All the bank accounts and everything else is in their name too. How do I put their name on the land? I don't want to give it to them now because I don't know what's the best thing. I don't know if it's better to let them sell it or me sell it or what.
So I think that's kind of taking a look at the whole picture and what makes most sense to you. You know who you want it to go to, you know how, and it's just a matter of putting the pieces in place or confirming that the pieces are in place to make sure that happens. So that might just look like a will that says, everything else is 50-50 and you're leaving it as is. That might look like a life estate deed where you're naming them as remainder beneficiaries when you pass away and then they get it. Or setting up a trust to hold the property. There are many different ways to do it, and it's all very specific to what your goals are.
Okay, great. Excellent. Well, let's give Brianna and Casey a big round of applause. Again, thank you so much. They'll be here. You guys stick around a little bit? Sure. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So next month, we're going to talk about ADUs, accessory dwelling units. And it's something that has been going on the West Coast for quite a while. And the state of Massachusetts has decided that ADUs, accessory dwelling units, can be built by right in Massachusetts, whatever that means, but we're going to dig into that a little bit. And so that's June 10th here, right back here. And in July, we're going to talk about communicating with your adult children, which is always fun. So we hope to see you then as well. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.